Greetings, Lewis, and welcome to another video. So, in today's video, I'm going to do something a little bit different than I usually do in this channel. Whenever I want to cover about new cards or new support, I always try to summarize like the older themes and then go into like a new wave of support and so on and so forth. Today in this video, I'm going to be talking about two new waves of support. One is in Legacy of Destruction and the other one is in Infinite Forbidden. Before we talk about the new themes, I kind of want to summarize Diabellze, the Black Witch, because we're getting to a point where the whole story involving Diabellze and the Sinful spoils is coming into fruition and it's pretty much reaching an epilogue. So in Age of Overlord, when we received Diabellze, we also received like these four Sinful spoils. And prior to this set, we received Subversion Snake Eye, which was another Sinful spoil, which was pretty much the prelude to Black Witch. Most players already know about the Snake Eye cards because it is like pretty much the best main archetype right here in the TCG as well as the OCG. We also know about Wanted because Wanted has been like a staple in every deck that involves Diabellze. Some people know about Silvera and not many people know about Arciela. And I kind of want to talk about these two because these two are going to play a very significant role with the new cards that we're going to explain. First, let's talk about Arciela real quick. This card is pretty much like a card that just functions very well with Diabellze herself. We also have Silvera, which is pretty much like a negation for all cards. Some people do play this with the Black Witch because it pretty much means that you can negate almost anything that your opponent activates on the spot. So it helps with protecting your board or helps with like other interactions as long as the Black Witch is relevant. So now that we summarized like all the other Sinful spoils, some people play some versions, some people do not. The main gimmick around this card is that it's searchable out of Poplar. So now let's talk about these four cards right here. So in Legacy of Destruction, we're going to be receiving 3 more Sinful spoils, as well as a new monster that functions well with the Sinful spoils. Let's talk about the main deck monster first, and then we'll talk about the 3 cards, and then we'll talk about like the thematic inclusion of these cards and how good will they be once Legacy of Destruction is released. So first we have Diabellze of the Original Sin. She is a light level 7 illusion monster, and she reads, if a Sinful Spoils card is in either graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon her this way once. Your opponent cannot activate spell trap cards that were not set. If either player sets a spell or trap on the field while this monster is on the field, you can target one card you control and one card your opponent controls, destroy them. You can only use this effect once per turn. So, basically the theme behind this card is you want to force your opponent to set their cards and then you interact with them while also battling with your cards. Thematically, what this means is you're fighting for the Sinful spoils. So, if your opponent is setting like a Sinful spoils card, they usually have to set it before activating it, and that turns Diabellze like into a hunter that just tracks them down and takes them away from you. What does this mean in the actual TCG? This card is amazing. This card is really, really strong. For starters, this card automatically shuts down quick play spells and trap cards. So, Infinite Impermanence, Evilly Mashed, Cosmic Cyclone, Infinite Forbidden Droplet, like Super Polymerization, runic spells, so the entire runic archetype also gets hurt by this. Um, like a lot of decks, like for example, Centurion also gets hurt by this real badly because it stops Emblem of Oath from activating. It stops their field spell from like being able to trigger. Uh, Against the Tempai Dragon deck that is coming to a TCG, it shuts down the ability to activate their quick play spell. It shuts down their field spell before activating. So this is a really, really powerful card. The main problem with this card at the moment is that despite it being an illusion monster, and we will talk about illusions in another video, there are no real ways to summon her real easily if you're not playing cards that involve Sinful spoils. So on that regard, this card is not as splashable as the Diabellze, which is pretty much her rival. But thematically, as a monster and what it does for the game, this card is insanely powerful. Any deck that can summon this card as part of their own board is going to be very, very problematic because a lot of common counters that are not hand traps that are used when going second are either trap cards or quick play spell cards. And just having the ability to shut those down just gives you a really big room for oppressive power in your deck. Also, this also helps shut down stun decks as well. So, like, if let's say for example you're facing like Dinomorphia, and like they're setting like one of their key trap cards, you can just use the Diabellze effect and pop that trap card on the spot. If you're facing like Runic Stun, Runic Stun gets severely hurt by this card. This card pretty much shuts down almost the entire deck, and there are no real stun monsters outside of Jaugen that can actually deal with this card. So on that regard, this card pretty much already like hurts a lot of archetypes. So 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. Now let's talk about Sinful Spoil Cycle. Take one level 5 or higher illusion monster from your deck, either add it to your hand or special summon it. So that already solves the problem of the Diabellze. Let's continue. If summoned this way, you cannot activate its effects during the main phase this turn. Fair enough. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one face down card you control, return it to the hand. You can only set one spell and trap from your hand. Oh, then you can set one spell and trap from your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. The last effect is pretty funny. Let's say, for example, you're activating Triple Thrust, and you're setting it because your opponent activated like a hand trap on you, and this card is in your graveyard. You can banish it, and whatever card you retrieve out of Triple Thrust, you can just grab it back to your hand. So that's pretty a neat interaction. This also just summons the bells from the deck, or it can just grab it to the hand, which essentially means you can special summon it because once you grab it, you already have a Sinful Spells in your graveyard, meaning that you can just summon Diabellze. So for the theme, this card is actually really good. Where can we see this card? I don't think you will see this in Snake Eye decks. However, take note, Diabellze can set all these cards. So Diabellze can set Cycle, and Cycle can flip into summon Diabellze. So now you have a way to have both wishes on board. Let's talk about the next one. This is Battle of the Sinful Spoils. Target cards you control up to a number of Sinful Spoils cards in your graveyard and are banished. And or cards your opponent controls up to a number of Sinful Spoils cards in their graveyard and or banished, destroy them. If this set card in someone's control is destroyed or banished by an opponent's activated effect, you can shuffle up to 2 cards on the field into the deck. So this card is pretty much meant uh, to be used as a card for the mirror match, or uh, not so much the mirror match, but anything that involves Sinful spoils. Uh, this also includes Sinful spoils from Banished, so that includes Wanted, and it includes like Original Snake Eye. Just to give you examples, which are the most common cards used. Thematically, this card is really good if you know that you're facing Sinful spoils, and the way the game is looking at right now, Sinful spoils are like pretty common amongst strategies. So I wouldn't say this card is phenomenal, but if you do know that you're facing like a matchup that involves Sinful spoils, this card can be actually really okay. Also, the ability to just shuffle two cards when it's popped well set is also very funny because let's say for example you're facing the Diabellze, you have this card in your hand, you can just set this and this can just get rid of Diabellze. So it's kind of a theme that Konami is trying to make when you're playing this card. They kind of want you to be in the scenario where you're facing like other Sinful Spells decks and just use this card as a tool to like get rid of them. Then we have Sinful Spells of Dawson Morgan. You can target one special summon monster on the field, change it to face down defense. If you control a level 5 or higher illusion monster and this card's in your graveyard, you can set this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use one dosing per turn, and only once that turn. So not that great. It's pretty much just watered down Book of Moon, but it is settable and it is searchable. So take that in mind. Also, the fact that you can reset this card if you control a level 5 for illusion is kind of good because let's say for example you're playing like a mill deck, or you're playing like a deck like Tear Elements or Light Swarms, just to give you an example, and you control the Diabellze, this card just becomes just a settable card that you can just mill or just send to the graveyard on the spot. So these are all the cards from Legacy of Destruction. I'd say these cards are phenomenal to some extent. Diabellze is incredible. These cards are okay. This card goes hand in hand with her. So that's pretty much it. Now let's talk about the rest of the new cards. These cards just got revealed before this recording. And we're just about to talk about the real reason behind this video, and that is the epilogue of the Sinful Spoils. So when we talked about the Diabellze, we talked about Silvera and we talked about Risilla. That's because now we have a main deck monster and we have a synchro monster with the name Silvera. And not only that, but we have a main deck monster and we have a synchro monster that ties to Arcelia. Adding to that, we have a few more monsters. We have a lot of spells and traps as well, and one of them is a Sinful Spoils. So let's go about them one by one. We'll start with Astera. Astera reads, you can send one spell trap from your hand or field to a graveyard, special summon one light spellcaster tuner from your deck. If this card is in the graveyard, when a spell trap is sent to a graveyard for the activation of a monster, you can special summon it. So the first effect is kind of cool. Basically, you have two more monsters that are spellcaster tuners, but adding to that, you have a lot of different options, like for example, Guiding Quem, Blazing Cartesia. My favorite is Centurion Primera. If you want to play like a Blue Eyes deck, you can summon Maiden. If you have interactions from for bouncing monsters, for example, you can add Effect Veiler. If you want to mix this with Light Swarms, you can also do that, and you can summon Minerva from the deck. So this is pretty cool. Essentially, what this monster is like, summoner monk, but for light spellcasters, pretty much. Uh, Also, like its graveyard effect is going to come up because you will see this theme of like cards being sent to a graveyard, for monster effects, like more than not. Just to give you one example. Now let's go to Lucia. Lucia reads, if you control a white forest monster, as there is a white forest monster, for example, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can you send one spell trap from your field or your hand to the graveyard, draw one card. You can target one white forest synchro monster you control or in your graveyard while this card's in your graveyard. Return it to the extra deck. Special summon this card, negating its effects. So, now we have a tuner that pretty much just works with the theme. For example, she can send the Sinful Spoils cards, and some of them, like for example, Wanted, has a graveyard effect. We will talk about the new ones because they all kind of serve synergy with them. But as of right now, you can do that with any spell and trap, including ones that float, and just net you a +1, or a 1/1 in this case. Also, being able to summon herself from the graveyard is a really cool thing as well. So keep that Symphantic in mind when we read the synchros. Now let's talk about Sylvie, which is the main monster for Silvera. This card reads, when this card is normal special summon, you can add one white forest spell trap from your deck to your hand. Fair enough. You can target one white forest synchro, put it, spawn it back to your extra deck, and then just resummon this. So again, this monster can also do the same thing as Lucia and just resummon herself. It's something cool to note, and it comes to both of these cards. You can also return the synchros from the graveyard. So just having that merit alone is kind of cool also, because if you end up synchro climbing with those synchros, these cards can just summon themselves for free. Now let's read the last main deck monster. It's called Reset. Reset reads, you can send one spell trap from your hand or field to a graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. Then add one white forest monster from your deck to your hand. Take note, this is all one effect, and this is all from the hand. So if they want to Veiler or Imperm, they cannot do that. They can Ash Blossom this card, because you are included an effect that adds a card. If this card is in the graveyard, when a light spellcaster tuner is special summoned to your field from opponent's turn, you can add this card to your hand. So essentially, what this means is, like, whenever a light spellcaster tuner is summoned, this card is just a free resource that you can just grab to your hand. And take note is, like, any light tuner spellcaster, and it doesn't have to be special summon just from the graveyard. It can be summoned from anywhere. But the biggest scenario that you're going to face are going to be Lucia and Sylvie, both returning a synchro or just to resummon themselves. So now you start generating advantage with all these cards. I would have liked that this monster would just resummon herself instead of adding herself to a hand. However, just her being a free summon herself already is good enough. Now let's talk about the spell and traps. Let's start with the Sinful Spoil. This is Sinful Spoil's Whispers, and this card reads, target one illusion or spellcaster monster you control, return that face-up monster to the hand or extra deck. From your and then special summon one monster from your graveyard or banishment. Uh, if this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, you can set it to your field. So the fact that it can reset itself is really, really a big deal because now all these main deck White Forest monsters just become free summons if you end up sending this card. And that's pretty cool. It's just free advantage out of all these monsters. Um, the spell effect of this card is not as good as other Sinful Spells cards. However, this card can be helpful if you're just trying to activate like your White Forest monsters, for example, and your opponent just tries to like Veiler, Imperm, or just get rid of your monsters. This card can serve as the tool of just like recurring them, dodging those cards, and just use them to just resummon other monsters. This also works for any illusion or spellcaster monster you control. So in the future, you could see this like in other spellcaster decks. So it's an okay card. Let's go for the next one. To enter the White Forest is forbidden. If you control level 6 or higher illusion or spellcaster, you can target one card your opponent controls, destroy it. If this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, you can set it to your side of the field. You can only use each effect once per turn. It's basically spot removal. In a vacuum, this card is not that great. However, just being a White Forest card means it's searchable from one of your monsters. Not only that, it's basically a free resource because you can just reset it if it was sent from a monster effect. Let's go to Folklore. Folklore reads, if you control an illusion or spellcaster monster, add one White Forest monster from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard, same as the other ones. So basically it's a Rhoda for illusion or spellcaster monsters. For White Forest monsters rather. And all you need to do is control an illusion or a spellcaster monster. So that's not that hard to do. Just with the White Forest theme alone, you can just like activate this card. I'd say out of all the cards we've read so far, this is like one of the better ones. And just having the ability to reset itself is also a big deal. Take note that all these cards that have the resetting effect does not like banish when it leaves the field or anything like that. These cards are just going to keep being free resources for your monsters if you just keep using your monsters to reuse these cards. Here's the last one. This is Calamity of the White Forest. And this card reads, special summon one White Forest monster from your hand or deck. Then you may synchro summon one White Forest synchro monster. If this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, you can set this card. Okay. This card is really, really good because from noticing the theme, you kind of want to synchro on your opponent's turn. So in the future instance that you just want to like interrupt your opponent, especially after we read the synchros, Calamity is just like one of the cards that can just set up the entire play. Also, this does not negate the White Forest monster that you summon. So let's say, for example, you just summon like Lucia, or you just summon like Sylvie. You do get their effects immediately when they're activated. So that's it for the spell and traps. Let's read over the synchro monsters. We can start with Silvera. Silvera reads, if this card is special summoned, You can change all face-up monster your opponent controls to face-down defense. All illusion spellcaster monsters you control gain 500 attack. This card's incredible. It's basically one-sided Book of Eclipse, and it's on special summon, not just synchro summon. So in the future, if you ever get the ability to just resummon this card, like on later turns, yeah, really good card. Take note, this card is a tuner. That's going to play a special role later. Let's read Arceala. Arceala reads, if this card special summon, you can send one spell trap card from your hand field to the graveyard. Either add one white forest card or one light spell caster monster from your deck to your hand. Same as Silvera, this can also buff your illusions and spellcaster monsters. Instead of giving them piercing damage, this protects them from like card effects. Also, really good card. Remember that all the white forest cards can reset themselves, so this is just free value out of her effect. And you can add any light spellcaster. I can just name one off the top of my head. This is already good, this format. So in that regard, this card is also really good. So now let's go to the last one. And this is Diabellze, Ghost of the White Forest. This card reads, if this card is synchro summoned by using a synchro tuner, you can target one spell and trap in your graveyard, add it to your hand. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can send one spell trap from your hand field to a graveyard, special summon one level 7 or lower synchro tuner from your extra deck, graveyard, or banishment. This card's amazing. This card's incredible. For starters, like this card can just retrieve any spell and trap. It doesn't have to be Sinful Spoils. It doesn't have to be White Forest cards. It could be just any spell and trap. So like, if like grabbing back cards like Prosperity, for example, grabbing cards back like Forbidden Droplets, like Super Polymerization, Monster Reborn, so on and so forth. I don't need to explain this part. Just summoning a Synchro Tuner is really good as well. It has to be level 7 or lower. This card's main purpose is to summon Silvera and Arceala. However, there are other synchro monsters that you can just summon with this card. There's a lot more than just these, but these are the more relevant ones because outside of Denglong, which is here because it's a walking +1, every single here, they do have an ability to quick synchro summon. So you can just summon stuff like, for example, Formula Synchron, and with Formula plus Diabellze, you can make like Baron the Floor, for example. You can summon Desert Locust and just have Desert Locust make your opponent discard a card. You can summon the Sorrow Cat, and like if you summon the Sorrow Cat properly, you can just reuse it. Denglong makes it so you can play Jansings with this card. Take note, this card is generic, so any synchro, like pretty much any synchro deck can summon this card. I'm looking at Centurion right now. So this card is all really, really good. So to summarize the theme, Diabellze is now looking like its own archetype. I'd say thematically this makes a lot of sense. Basically, the goal is to battle it out with your Sinful Spoils cards and just try to like limit your opponent's resources with them. I'd say the synchro monsters are also really good. I say the main deck monsters are solid. the power level of these cards are not like super like high compared to like other themes, like for example Snake Eyes. But as their own theme, I'd say these cards are to look out for, and because like one example I can give you is like Diabellze. If you pair Diabellze with these synchro monsters, that is already a really really powerful board. It's a board that is incredibly hard to break. Your opponent has to deal with a lot of interruptions, and just watching the theme like mixed together, this all makes a lot of sense. This all is actually incredible. Uh, the fact that some of these synchros are generic means that you can see them in like other archetypes and just have them like play a very special role that way. The fact that these cards work on special summon is also a big deal, because if they end up like in your graveyard or if they end up banished, you can just bring them back with Diabellze. The fact that Diabellze can special from banished as well is also a really really big deal. It gives you the avenue of playing around stuff like Dimension Shifter, plays around Bestials as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you found this video informative to your liking, your understanding. Uh, More content involving for Infinite Forbidden or Legacy of Destruction coming soon. Uh, Keep practicing and keep dueling.